there, smart, intelligent, and reasonably attractive viewers of SC2 Noob School. I'm Trebus, and you probably already know you're watching Bronze to Diamond Week. We're doing Protoss this week, and today is Wednesday, so this is Gold Wednesday. And today, I'm not going to talk about macro a whole lot. We're in the Gold League, so the macro is, it's probably pretty good in the early game. There's probably some build order mistakes. The late game, certainly there will be macro issues. But I want to just take just one day today to talk about a couple things. I want to talk about scouting, and I want to talk about psychology of your opponent, which should be something that you should consider in your games, but it's not the sole factor to how you're going to win. Psychology is important, and you can glean certain things from people, even just from a ladder game, and adjust your strategy accordingly. Alright, so let's start off with the scouting. So I'm going to put this on... Oh! Forgot to mention, Revo, thank you so much for the replay. You're awesome. Alright, so Revo, we're going to start off our initial scouting here. All we're seeing is a barracks. We're not seeing any gas going down quite yet. If there's going to be a gas, it's probably going to be pretty soon. Terrans generally build their gas a little bit after their barracks. So we should be seeing a gas pretty soon. We're keeping the probe alive. We haven't seen a gas yet, and then here's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. Instead of trying to do anything cute with the probe, at least just keep it alive. Just click it back to your base, keep it moving, and that way you can at least send it in a little bit later. It can get past the first Marine and go and check these gases, because now you're not going to know if maybe he just took the gases a little late, and that's just unfortunate. Talking a little bit about the build order, I don't like the Forge Fast expansion against Terran. I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it protects you from a whole lot. I don't think it buys you an earlier expansion than you can get with a couple stalkers. I just don't like it at all, so I don't recommend it. We're going to get this Nexus up reasonably fast, and then you're going to notice a big area of time in this game where there's just no scouting going on. And I know a lot of people will fall into this trap, where especially on a map like this one where you can get a fairly easy second base, they'll just fall into this trap of staying inside your base, just staying all curled up inside in your safe little pocket of your expansion, and not venturing out to do any kind of scouting whatsoever. These people generally feel pretty confident in their builds, macro is pretty good, so they'll just stay in their base. Well, you know what? You should really be challenging yourself to do the scouting and have the solid macro at the same time. For instance, it's easy to scout. What was that we just saw? Oh, we just saw a Hellion. Okay. Well, I didn't actually notice that. So that'll give us a little bit of information. We saw that there wasn't any gas going down, so most likely it was going to be an expansion. If it had been something like some kind of like mass barracks cheese, then that would have already happened and we probably would have died. So it's probably not that. So we can reasonably guess that it's going to be an expansion. The expansion was a little late. He did end up getting 2 gases, so that wasn't what I would have guessed it would be, but I guess based on seeing the Hellion, you can assume that he did get gas, although you don't know whether he got 1 or 2 gases. But other than that, we don't have any scouting information. The Stalker is a really nice unit to use to scout against a Terran player. Hellions aren't going to scare you. Hellions can take map control from a Zerg, but they can't take map control from a Protoss. Stalkers are just so good. And Stalkers are also nice because they outrange Marines, and they have higher speed than Marines. So if a Terran player is not making any Marauders, like this one is, then your Stalker reigns supreme and can get some really nice map control. So work on getting a couple Stalkers out against a Terran player, and then grab a Watchtower. Either send a probe on there or maybe a Zealot, but use your Stalker mostly just to gain that map control. We're going to go back to Evo's view here, and this is just continuing on. I'm going at times for speed. It's a period of no scouting is going on. The macro is decent, the money's a little bit high. You can always stand to add on, the barracks are too. Okay, so here we go. I mentioned micro a little bit here as well. We've got a drop going on. So how should we deal with this? Well, probably sending in the stalkers first would not be a good idea. The better idea would be to send your zealots in first and have your stalkers trying to take out the medevac. A medevac, basically, a medevac alive. I almost just said something really stupid. I was going to say a medevac alive is way scarier than a medevac dead. Wow. You're welcome for that bit of diamond level knowledge. But yeah, taking out that medevac would be huge, because then the Thor is obviously stranded and he can't get away. Okay, so what's going on here? Oh no, now we see another drop. Okay, what's going on in our Terran player's head? This is when I want to talk about psychology. Just from this attack alone, you can tell exactly how the Terran player wants to play. He wants to play a really heavy drop and micro intensive style, okay? We're in the Gold League. If a guy is doing like a dual Thor / Marine drop simultaneous thing going on, he's got micro in his head, and you can basically assume his macro is going to suffer from it. So knowing that, I would just focus on protecting myself. After, of course, we clean up with this, I would focus on protecting myself from any kind of drops, get a third base, and then just out macro my opponent.
Your probes are under
So once again, we see this drop coming in. Nice job to pull the probes away. This drop is actually microed pretty badly. It's taking out the simulator. Here's another little micro error that happens here. Just use the stalkers to attack at a distance versus clicking in here to get in close. There's really no advantage to do that. And if you are going to do that to get in close, just take out the medevac immediately to guarantee that he can't come out. And look at this. We got another drop going on here. Really support the decision to work with zealots there. That's a really good choice. And that's going to force that drop to go away. So yeah. Units lost. 19. What's the thing for the... How do I don't commentate. Units lost, control R. Okay, so he killed a lot of workers, but we're in okay shape. We've still got 36 probes as compared to 35 SCVs. That is positively decent. Okay? Alright, so now that we know the psychology of the player, what am I going to think about? Well, first of all, I want to get at least one, maybe two cannons down, but bare minimal one cannon down at every single expansion. That makes, especially like a Marine drop, that makes that a lot more difficult. If he is going to try to drop on some cannons, then he needs to get all of his units out at the same time and then stem in and take out the cannons. And then I'd also, I guess just mentioning the macro real quick, add on a couple more warp gates so you've got some extra warp in cycles to warp in some zealots or whatever you need to clean up any kind of drop. I definitely think in this scenario it's okay to have extra warp gates, okay to have more warp gates than you can spend from, just to have those extra cycles in case you need them for an emergency drop. Also like the decision to get 2 observers. This is actually a really good decision. But the positioning of those observers will be very important. I'm trying to think of where really would be the best spot for this observer. This one's in a decent spot. It could spot a drop coming in a little bit before it comes in, but it's not protecting if they take a really long route. I think that's a pretty good spot though. And then this observer, of course, will go into the main base. And the thing you'll be wanting to look for...
complete.
Okay, now that you're in the main base, what are we going to look at? One thing that I think people don't do enough, especially in the lower leagues, is check the upgrades of the opponent. Just select one unit real quick, check the upgrades. Just to know, it's useful information. And then pop in and see exactly what's going on. Okay, so we saw some of what's going on. We sent the observer in enough to see the barracks, a starport, so we clearly know he's going to be going for, well, right now all he can get is a bunch of Marines, but we don't really know what he's going for later. really important to send this observer in and really just see everything you can, absolutely everything you can. Then you could see the double engineering bay. You could see if you had any more. You could easily have more barracks or starports or anything over there. So you really need to check the full base. And then parking the observer right on top of the army. I would suggest parking the observer a little bit outside, because the Terran player will be able to see this observer. He'll be able to see the little glimmer and do just a quick scan and pick it off if he wants to. So I'd park it at least a little bit away, and then if you've got a really quick eye, move it
Your
whenever somebody
probes
starts
are
moving
under
it.
attack.
So here's another drop it's actually a double medevac drop that another a cannon would have done nicely. I think I might have missed a drop over here. Not quite sure. But that was taken care of nicely. I'm going to go back and look at that again. So let's see here. Drops coming in. Okay. First of all, there needs to be a pylon around here somewhere, just for the cannons, and also so you can warp in zealots. Zealots can be a really nice way to just slow down a drop. You can just throw a couple hundred minerals in there and at least save a couple probes, or buy your army some time to get over there. And so definitely having some pylons would be a really nice thing. And just in general, just have pylons. Another consideration, knowing that you're against a player who is very, clearly very micro centric, blink might be a good idea. Try to shut down some of these drops a little better. I wouldn't recommend totally changing your game plan up to be like, you know, some massive blink stalker army just because of this little bit of psychological knowledge we have about the opponent, but if it fits a little bit into your strategy anyway, might not be a bad thing to have. So here we go. There's the nice big zealot warp in. That's the advantage of having open warp gates, and they're going to be able to just take out this drop entirely. Ah, oh, medevac. How much health did he have? Oh, 2 health. What a tragedy. That if that were a play, it would be a tragedy. Okay, so also staying active with the observer is very nice. You can see things like a frickin' Ghost Academy going down. Really, we should still be scouting the entire rest of the base. There's not a whole lot to see, but it's just good practice. The other thing to be cognizant of,
Base is under attack.
we got another drop coming in. The cannons are protecting nicely against the drop, and the drops are good. The other thing to keep your observer active is to just check for the third expansion. This one's not doing a whole lot right now. Perhaps it could be checking for the third, but I would use this observer as well to just pop back and forth, occasionally pop over there and just see what's going on.
You must construct.
Okay, so scouting. We have this observer. We see 4 Vikings. We saw the starport with the reactor on it. So right now, I'm feeling like these Colossus that I'm going to get out are not going to be the most useful Colossus. If anything, I would try to push very soon while I have these Colossus in about equal numbers as the Vikings. As soon as you get about 8 to 10 Vikings, they start getting really, really scary for your Colossus. Just being able to like 1 and 2 shot them. So I would definitely consider attacking right now, knowing that there's going to be a lot of Vikings coming, and then adding on a bunch of warp gates to both to use this money and just to be able to reinforce the attack when it comes in, and then switching to Archons and getting a Twilight Council and getting Charge and then getting Archons would, I think, be a pretty nice decision right now.
Additional pylons.
Because basically when you do a tech switch like that into Archons, the Terran is expecting you to have Colossus, and it's going to make all those Vikings useless. Also, you can just pump out some Immortals there, because you see a healthy number of Marauders here. Immortals would actually be a really nice addition to this army. And here's the moment where the game is lost. In a second. So we see the army coming. We can clearly see we've got some stalkers there to protect our Colossus. This is the time where you really just need to have your head on, okay, I need to arrange my army to be in fighting position. You've got the time. His army's over here. You just need to spend a few seconds, get your zealots in front, your stalkers behind that, your sentries somewhere with the stalkers, and your Colossus in the back, just able to do a ton of damage. And just that little small piece of setting up your army can drastically change the game. If you're losing stalkers before you're losing zealots, your zealots just won't do anything. It'll be a sad time for you. So here is where's the battle ends and it's entirely because of the disorganization of the army. You can see with Terran, they can just have this big mash of units, and it doesn't really matter. There's nothing as important to the Terran player for Micro as it is having zealots in front of stalkers. Let's look at all these zealots. What are these zealots doing? Giving the stalkers back massages. That's not good for a fight. Back massages are nice when you're trying to win. So as you can see, the Viking count is actually not enough to be really horribly detrimental to the Colossus count. And I think had we had the stalkers in front, that could have certainly, the zealots in front, that certainly could have been a win. Also, the adding on of gates right here, if we had had more gateways, we could have just reinforced and eventually cleaned up this army. Probably lost that expansion, but at least we could have cleaned up the army. Still had 2 Colossus alive, and we could have gotten some nice warp-in rounds with all this extra money we had. So that's it. I hope this was useful, just focusing less on the macro. I'm gonna be talking about macro more in, oh, look at that sad immortal. I'm gonna be talking about macro more in Protoss and Diamond Day on Thursday and Friday respectively, but I at least wanted to take one day really to just talk about scouting and to talk about the micro, which we'll talk about more. And then I thought this was a really good example of the psychology of your opponent and what assumptions you can make about him just based on little things like that cute little drop harass. That tells you a lot about where this player's mind is at in terms of the strategies. Alright, stay tuned tomorrow for Platinum Thursday. I'm Trebus. GG.